It'll be feral. I think that's how we should open. We should just warn everyone. This is a feral one. We're wild in these streets, and this episode reflects it.
Welcome to Bible Boys, a podcast where two ex-evangelical siblings and an ex-Catholic non-sibling watch Christian media and either praise or condemn it. I'm Aaron.
I'm one of the green siblings. I don't remember. It's been so long.
And I'm Josh.
This week, we embark on a crusade to New Jersey with the 1999 fantasy comedy Dogma. Before we rebrand Catholicism's image, please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, like and comment on our video, and follow us on Twitter at The Bible Boys.
So I think we need to just let our audience know. The reason we kind of took a month off there is because we were all celebrating Hot Boy Summer. Because I know that, what's the dude, the actor? The dude who got COVID. This is not funny. This is going to have to be edited out. Oh my god. What's the dude's name? Forrest Gump.
Tom Hanks?
Tom Hanks'
I'm gonna
son.
fucking kill you. You ground our podcast to a halt for this?
Tom Hanks' son said that it was White Boy Summer. But
You couldn't remember Chet Hanks' name?
I don't think anyone, the history should not remember Chet. And so it was not White Boy Summer, it was Hot Boy Summer. We all enjoyed our Hot Boy Summers. I had a different medication coursing through my blood. Aaron went to Gettysburg, and Michael conquered the moon, and here we all are.
I'm not done with Hot Boy Summer, but I am done with the hiatus from the podcast.
Yes, thank you, whoever is still listening at this point, for forgiving us. We've had a very eventful July. Like Josh said, we've had a lot of life changes, a lot of things. I've actually met Michael. I know Michael's a real person now. Still not sure about Josh. But yeah, we were super busy. Unfortunately, we couldn't make time to record last month. But to make up for it, we're doing one regular episode now, so that's good. You are welcome.
Yeah, hope you missed us because we're bringing it back and incidentally picking a film that reminded me of another one we watched.
Yeah,
which we'll wait until my review for.
This is an interesting pick from Michael. This is a Josh pick if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like this is very similar to Saved, so like...
I don't feel like this is like any movie we have seen.
I love that we all have three different takes because
wait.
I'm saving mine for the end.
I feel like this is like Velocipaster done well.
So it's certainly a satire film.
So this is Dogma, the 1999 film by Kevin Smith, everyone's favorite individual wearing a hockey jersey and a ball cap. And Michael recommended this movie, and it's definitely something out of our normal shtick, but I absolutely loved this pick and its examination of Christianity.
I actually don't think it's that far off. Of all of my picks, this one might be closest to actually what the theme of the podcast is.
I'm going to say, yeah, Michael usually irks me a lot with his extremely strange choices, but this one is completely fine for our podcast.
I made us watch Jennifer's Body in Midsommar.
There was no gay sex, there were no demons, there was, barely any brutal death.
Actually,
did you watch the same movie?
Yeah, what did you watch?
Was there gay sex?
There were demons.
There were demons.
Oh my god, yeah, there were demons. That was the whole point, huh?
Holy shit, we are so rusty.
We are very rusty.
Oh god. Yeah, so how do we want to tackle this? Do we want to just go through the plot beats?
Yeah, we can do a little plot summary. It's actually a pretty straightforward plot. I think the more interesting part of this film is what it decides to satirize. This is basically during the era where Ben Affleck and Matt Damon just could not stop starring in movies together because they were just really good pals that sometimes just watched each other shirtlessly or whatever straight boys do when they're best friends with each other. And they star in this film as fallen angels that were banished from heaven. for insubordination because Loki decided to say, I resign as Angel of Death. And so they were sent to Wisconsin.
Where all banished angels go.
Yes. That is now canonical, and I love that little part of Christian canon now.
I just want to say, Wisconsin, I think your state is perfectly fine. As somebody who lives in Indiana, I do not have any room to throw stones.
I've never been to Wisconsin, so...
Which purgatory is that, Aaron? Is that where the dead babies go, or is that where the, like, circumcised babies go? I don't know which one.
It's where Mike Pence lives, so...
Oh, okay. So the second one. Michael, you did skip the other name, which is just amazing, which is Bartleby.
Yes. Bartleby is very important, obviously. So we cut to one of my favorite parts of this film, Cardinal Glick.
Who is beautifully played, and like every scene with Glick is just astounding.
Yeah, and played by George Carlin.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's George Carlin!
Yeah!
Uh-huh.
Great. This movie has so many, like, incredible actors, and it is wild to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, this film has so many good ones. So Cardinal Glick makes an excellent point that if you listened to our Why We Left episode, I also made, which is Christianity's kind of dour. Like, it's all about, like, oh, look how sad and suffering Jesus is on the crucifix. So he decides to redecorate the church and rededicate the church in the image of Buddy Christ, which you've seen.
It's the meme.
It's the meme.
It's Finger Guns Jesus. I did not know that that's where this came from.
Yeah.
I have a short story about Buddy Christ. The first time I was introduced to that image was actually in my freshman Old Testament course. The teacher who taught that class was gifted a little statue of Buddy Christ by one of his students. I mean, that man was like, we should put theocrats in charge of the government kind of person. So it is very funny to me that this is the movie that's from.
That's amazing.
What a misunderstanding of what this movie is saying.
I mean, perhaps. I love this so much because it's just like so it kind of sets up what vibe the movie's going for and what kind of satire we're getting. And so basically what this church is saying is anyone who attends the church during their rededication is actually going to receive an indulgent and all of their sins are going to be forgiven. And our angels, Bartleby and Loki, read about this and go, oh my God, we're going to go to this church that is forgiving all sins just by hanging out with Buddy Jesus, and we're going to get our sins forgiven and go back to heaven. And so they have to die first.
The idea is that this would create a weird, like, loophole where they were banished, never allowed into heaven again. But if this indulgence allowed them to die and then go into heaven because all of their sins were forgiven, then God is no longer omnipotent and, it would be bad.
Yeah. You're looping a little ahead because in universe, they don't even know that. They're just like, this is a cool idea. We're going back to heaven.
So two things. Specifically, it is a plenary indulgence that this church is giving out, which will allow these demons I guess angels are fallen demons. These angels to get their sins redeemed. They do, is an important plot point, they do have to become human. They have to cut their wings off and become human to receive this indulgence. Second, a plenary indulgence is a thing in the Catholic Church, which is 100% real, and we will talk about it at the end of the podcast.
And yeah, these two are just ready. They're like, we want to go back to heaven. And they end up being helped by a demon. And then these three teenagers that are like, I don't know, how do we describe them? Are they like lesser demons? I love the idea of teenagers being demons.
I don't think they're actually demons.
Yeah.
I think they're just mean kids that like to play street hockey.
Well, this is how
That
you
makes
get
me
good.
so happy.
Like, you get good at street hockey by, like, having a demon who kind of just, like, hangs out with you a little bit. They're D&D warlocks.
So these are, I mean, I don't know. They seem, to me, I was getting the read that they're some sort of, like, hellion creatures, but I could be wrong.
No, something happens later in the film that suggests that they are some sort of demon spawn, but my headcanon said they're just shitty teens.
So we meet our hero, Bethany Sloan. She is an abortion clinic counselor, and she is actually attending church. So they're getting donations at her church to stop a hospital from disconnecting life support on this John Doe who is in a coma. And his name in this is Doe Jersey. And he's a homeless man who is actually beaten by those triplets, by the demon triplets.
They're just triplets. We don't know that they're demons, Michael. A lot of judgment. They could just be little kids that almost killed this old man.
And while Bethany is at home, she is visited by a pillar of fire that turns into none other...
Snape.
Never Snape, of course. Alan Rickman.
Of course. Who I keep having in my notes to put not Megatron.
Metatron, yes, he's the voice of God. He's not Megatron, the Decepticons' leader and commander.
I would love if Alan Rickman comes down and he's like, Optimus Prime, I will get you.
I think the Transformers movies would be 80% better if Alan Rickman was Megatron.
Every movie would be better. The culture would be better if Alan Rickman was Megatron.
So now is where we get the explanation that this is going to cause that, like, challenge in the omnipotence of God. That, oh shit, if these angels are able to go to heaven, basically everything will stop existing. Like, the universe will collapse onto itself. And Bethany kind of reacts how I would, is like, none of this is fucking true.
Yeah.
And is convinced because they are teleported to a dinner in Mexico. And also same, like, if you would like to convince me you are the voice of God, the way to get me there is also through tequila.
It is specifically shouted out that it's not in Mexico, but it is the Mexican restaurant a block down from her apartment. And she was like, that's actually equally impressive.
Yeah. So Bethany is like, fine, I guess I will go ahead and fix this thing. And she is now a target of the triplets. So the triplets attack her. And we know that they are scary and dangerous because they're teenagers, but also because they did almost murder a homeless man. And then we get the prophets, our stoners, our drug dealers, Jay and Silent Bob.
Okay. Were you all aware of who these two characters were before you watched this movie?
No.
Yeah.
I knew that, like, that's Kevin Smith. Like, he showed up and I'm like, that's fucking Kevin Smith. You can't fucking fool me. No idea that they were coming or what was happening.
Okay. Because, yeah, I had heard the names Jay and Silent Bob before, and I was like, are they, like, Simpsons characters? I don't know who they are. And I was like, oh, they're from the fucking Kevin Smithiverse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Silent Bob, I think, is a pretty good character, but I did hate Jay very much.
I agree.
Yeah,
I think Silent Bob is, like, really funny.
There's some Jay comments that don't age well. They age like a
Most
good
of them
jar
are
of milk.
actually quite horrific.
Yeah. Silent Bob's comedic timing is just... I will say Jay had one joke that I found very, very funny once. And that was about it for him.
I love the idea that these two are prophets. Like, I don't know. As someone who like read the Bible and like spent a lot of time studying like Christianity, that's actually a lot more in line with teaching than a like pastor or preacher being a prophet.
A prophet should just be a dude in the right place at the right time with nothing going on. Like,
Yeah.
that's, like, Moses wasn't busy. Like,
And they actually meet, surprise, the 13th apostle. It is not Mary Magdalene, much to my chagrin.
It is Chris Rock.
Unfortunately.
He's been canceled, hasn't he? Mm-hmm. Okay. I prefer to think of him as he was in this film, not as he is now.
which is unfortunate, because he also had one of my favorite jokes in this movie, which I won't repeat verbatim, but, like, Bethany asks if he knows Jesus, and he's like, "Know him, he owes me $5. And that really got me.
I laughed at that one, too. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, that one actually did it. I really thought it was funny. I thought it was hilarious. He's one of those people, not to get too into it, that I am willing to overlook a lot from, because I think he's very, very hilarious and well-intentioned in a way that most people are not. And most comedians are not.
I will say this performance from him just immediately touches on the whitewashing of Christianity in a way that is so digestible that just, like, I did not realize some of the comments that they were making were way deeper than just him being like, haha, isn't that funny? Like, it's very interesting. Jesus was a dude from the Middle East. He was not a white Italian man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this movie, like, despite all of its flaws, I think does, like, have some pretty interesting commentary about Christianity. Nothing that's not necessarily, like, new, but, like, it would have definitely been thought-provoking and, contributed to a discourse around Christianity at the turn of the millennium that would have been, something that a lot of people wouldn't have thought of if they, weren't actual, like, scholars of Christianity and just wanted to go see a movie. So, like, I won't say that I love this film, not to give away the end, but like I did. I'm glad we watched it. Mm-hmm. Because of stuff like this.
I mean, I'm completely positive that everyone who consumed this film back in '99 was as thoughtful and as nuanced as you, Aaron, and no one overreacted.
Yeah, I've definitely got some reviews that confirm that.
As someone who has a soft spot for stoner comedies, I love to put on just an absolutely terrible comedy with one too many poop jokes. This movie hit in such a good way for me. The big spiritual stoner take on Christianity. Like, it just jumped in every once in a while. It was like, yeah, church terrible, but God's cool, just if you want it, great. If not, who cares, be happy. And that would have tickled high school Josh just the right way. And I'm surprised I did not manage to find this movie when I was still a Christian.
Oh, yeah, I am finding myself just wildly surprised that I found this in 2021 as an agnostic watching it for the first time, not 10 years ago as a Christian. I want to talk about serendipity.
Yeah, go
Selma
for it.
Hayek, yeah.
That was my third. You've got to be kidding me. There in this movie.
So they go to a strip club and they meet the muse of creative inspiration known as serendipity. And I love Selma Hayek in almost any role that she's ever played, because this woman acts in a way that she becomes the character, but adds herself in these moments. And like when she's talking about how God is a woman, and she is talking about how the Bible could be divinely inspired, but it is still shaped and like biased by the people who write it. I think that's one of those really nuanced takes. And then also her yelling, the only people who wrote it were men, so of course they made God a man. And I really just appreciate that. And I appreciate that perspective. And that feels like a conversation you might actually get Selma Hayek to say if you've ever read any of her interviews and know how quirky of a person she is.
Now, Michael, in between this interesting conversation about where feminism exists in the modern Christian state, would you like to describe the villain that shows up after they meet Serendipity?
I feel like you've got to take it away.
All right. They fight a pile of shit.
Mm-hmm. You want to know the worst thing about the shit monster? Is that the fucking agonizing 2-minute scene of them fighting the shit monster is actually edited, and that they had to remove an entire, like, extended cut of the shit monster fight because audiences thought it was so fucking bad. So we got the mercifully shortened shit monster fight, but one of my least favorite parts of this movie.
Yeah, I love this scene up until that moment, and then I'm like, god damn, is that not poetic for what this film is?
Because we're getting this incredible conversation with Selma Hayek where she's talking about Christianity and, you know, the ways in which Catholicism has been warped. She has this great line where she says, like, you people don't celebrate your faith, you mourn it. And, like, that absolutely owns. And then anyway, there's like, well, here's a poop monster that's come from Gomorrah to kill, or Golgotha, because when people die on crosses, they shit themselves, and that's really funny. And it's like, why? Why did we do this? We almost said something in this movie, and then we threw a poop joke at it.
Like, right after it.
Yeah, and then to end this great scene of this poop monster, our great director grabs an air freshener and sprays it.
And that does it.
Yeah.
Well, and then they're heading to New Jersey.
There's another sequence that I feel like we should touch on because of the year this movie came out. So we haven't talked about our fallen angels for a while, Loki and Bartleby. They go to this boardroom, which is like... The company is like the company of Mubi, the golden calf, which I guess is McDonald's. I'm not really sure what they're trying to satirize besides the fact that they're like, oh, there's a new golden calf. And basically, like, they go around and they, like, point at all of the, you know, wealthy white guys in this boardroom, and they talk about their sins, and then, you know, tell them all the terrible things they've done, except for, you know, the one woman who is, of course, sinless, because it's fine to be a woman at a, Fortune 500 company. You definitely haven't done anything terrible to get that far. And just to be clear, that's not a joke about sleeping your way to the top. That's a joke about capitalism. And then they do proceed to murder everyone in that room.
Hell yeah, they do!
Which I was very uncomfortable with. There is a lot of... Matt Damon pulls out a gun and shoots people in this movie, and considering this movie came out months after Columbine, I thought that it was a strange choice.
Yeah, I kind of took this as a little bit meta, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, because I looked at it as almost like, are they kind of commenting a little bit on our culture too and like, this might be me just projecting a little bit, right? Like this could fully be me reading deeply into something that is superficial. But I looked at this and went, is there anything more American than to look at the sins of other people and, be on this redemption journey and to have like a scene of gun violence after they just have recounted that these are all like sinful, terrible people. And it, to me, felt like, okay, yeah, this is a little also satire of, okay, these angels are killing bad people, right? Like the people who have committed these grievous sins and doing it in a way that is very fitting of the country they are plopped into and the part of the world that they are living in and even the time period that they're in.
I really like that read, Michael, and I would grant you it if this scene didn't come immediately before the shit monster scene.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give Mr. Smith that much credit, but
That's fair.
I think, you know what, the author's dead. Long live the audience, the new author. So thank you, Michael, for for your take.
Truly hate to add even more to the stoner comedy, but every God, this is way too deep for this fucking movie. I really got the indication that every scene with the angels was where the audience's cynicism was supposed to come into play, and every scene with the other group is where the optimism was supposed to come into play. So like that, this is your good relationship with Christianity, and this is your bad relationship with Christianity. And again, way too deep. But that's why that scene worked for me, because Christianity in and of itself is this concept of, attack the bad. Like, if it's just like, throw stones. Who cares what people in a boardroom, like, fucking go ahead. And I do think it isn't, like, the Columbine mentioned, like, I don't think that's a bad take. I think, unfortunately, with this country, it is impossible to have a demonstration of gun violence without it connecting to, like, a tragedy that happened a week ago, a month ago. That's not excusing it. That's putting a bad thing for the nation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean that there should be no depictions of gun violence in media. I just thought it was very interesting to have such a, public display of gun violence so close to a national tragedy, which at the time was, unfathomable. Now, in the past couple of years, ever since this assault rifle ban ended.
Yeah, I think I've got my blinders on a little bit because this movie is 2 months younger than I am. So, I wasn't too up to date on the news. The world was a little bit different with how it reacted to mass shootings.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was kind of the whole thing, right? Like, there actually were, media that were pulled in the wake of Columbine, and I don't know that would have been something to happen today, right? Like, if this film happened today, I don't know that we would be shocked from a depiction of gun violence, given where our media is.
Where were we?
We were on our way to New Jersey.
New Jersey,
on the train.
Please continue.
Yes. So Bethany is getting drunk, and she's actually sitting next to Bartleby.
This is my favorite scene in the movie, the conversation between Bethany and Bartleby, where they both talk about their relationships with faith, and also with, abandonment specifically, right? Bethany talks about how she had an ex-husband who left her, and she, always is self-doubting because she doesn't understand, why he left, and it doesn't feel good about herself anymore, and always has that piece of her that is always confused about who she is and how secure she should be. And conversely, Bartleby is like, yeah, I felt the same way after, he doesn't say this outright, but after God kicked me out of heaven and abandoned me, and I'm always looking back at her and wondering, why she doesn't love me anymore, and what could have gone differently. And they both have this very interesting relationship with abandonment and loss, and trying to fix a hole that comes from having a relationship in which you have something sad happen to you. And I really liked this conversation. I wish that there was more of this in the movie instead of Jay and the shit monster.
That's the other name for the movie.
Oh, poor Silent Bob.
Might be misremembering, and you guys may have mentioned this because, as we've mentioned, not my A game today. Weren't the angels kicked out of heaven specifically because they didn't do a killing?
That is coming in their conversation, I believe, right after this, like in the next scene. Because first, Bob throws the angels off the train after they explain that, hey, you're going to cause the end to all human existence. And then that's actually where we get our, little split with our angels. Loki's like, don't love the idea of destroying all of existence just because we want to go back to heaven. Bartleby is like, actually, I'm pissed. And that's where he brings up your point, if you'd like to take it away.
Yeah, so it was specifically that Bartleby convinced Loki not to do a killing after they had done like plenty of smiting, and God said, "All right, goodbye," because of that. And Bartleby thought that was still is upset about God's decision on that and feels betrayed. And I think that puts the boardroom scene in a much more interesting light, where these are individuals that made a decision that was, you know, in the past, allegedly, like, a kind one, you know, to not do a massacre, and then to then go forth and do it again. It's just an interesting, like, lesson to have been learned.
Yeah, and it brings up an interesting conversation about free will, right? Like, where they talk about how humans have all this free will, but then angels are not allowed to go against the will of God or face permanent expulsion. And I think that's an interesting take, especially given that, you know, there's a lot of Christians that would argue that if you err from the word of God and you die before saying, hey, my bad, you're going to hell forever. So I find that, like, I found this whole conversation very, very interesting. And, you know, we actually get another one of these right after, because Bethany is, like, having these, like, existential questions about, like, why is she called upon this? Why can't God do it? And, like, you know, like, doubting her purpose, which in this film has, like, a direct plot point, but is also a greater question that I think Christianity never really gives you the tools to grapple with. And then Metatron admits, hey, so we actually don't know where God is. God disappeared while playing skee ball in New Jersey. And we picked you because you are a distant, direct blood relative of Jesus.
Dan
That's
Brown,
right.
eat your heart out.
We're talking about the Da Vinci Code again.
And that is the film that this reminded me of. This is the Da Vinci Code with a sense of humor.
This is a good Da Vinci Code.
I still liked that movie.
That's the difference between mine and Aaron's personality. That perfectly sums up the difference.
Well, I find it really interesting because they actually talk about how, you know, Jesus was asking the same things as Bethany about, like, why is this my purpose? You know, pointing out that the Bible skips from 12-year-old Jesus to 30-year-old Jesus. I've always found that interesting.
There's you should read the Gospel of Thomas. There's some very interesting parts where Jesus turns some boys into some birds. But there was, like, a part that stuck with me ever since I saw this movie originally, and that's Metatron's like, anger with his job, where he's like, I didn't want to, like, what did he say specifically? Like, I had to tell, like, a young girl that she was pregnant with the Messiah, and, like, that was on me to tell her that. And it was something so real about, like, pain and betrayal in Rickman's voice. And I think that is partially to do because Rickman's a kick-ass actor, and really both him and the actress that plays Bethany destroy this scene.
Yeah, the part where Rickman, I believe this is where he tells Bethany, he recounts how he told the adolescent Christ that he was God, and, like, he just remembers how Jesus was so afraid and scared, and he got this message that he was going to have to die painfully and horribly for people who he loved, and Metatron says, like, if I was asked to do that again, I would not do it. Like, I think that is the strength of films like these, where it's like, I would like to imagine, you know, Christ in a context that he was not, you know, portrayed as in the Bible, but is extremely, you know, feasible for a real person. And I think like stories like this make Christianity a much more palatable religion if you think about what it is like, what it would have been like for Christ to be a young boy and actually experience the fear of being told that you are God. You know, like the Gospels will tell you, you know, he always is known. You know, the story of him showing up in the temple and being like, where did you expect to find me except in my Father's house? Like, you know, I think it is very interesting to imagine a world in which Christ just has that, you know, the cross is foreshadowed to him, and I think it actually adds something to the narrative of Christianity if Christ has to learn and grow to accept that he is going to die for the sake of the world. I think that's a much more interesting story than the one we get. And I cannot believe it is in this fucking movie where God gets fucking beat to death by a bunch of hockey teens, and, you know, it loves skee ball.
Well, that's just canon if you look in the biblical text.
Well, you guys get different books than I do.
Yeah, that's in one of ours. But, like, I agree 1,000% with what you're saying there, Aaron. The idea of Jesus not being, like, immediately, yeah, for sure, I'll die in the most violent way, makes his sacrifice way, way more meaningful in my mind. The idea that, like, he comes to grips with it, and it makes it his decision in the end, like, that's awesome and very powerful, and it gives Jesus a personality, which is something that doesn't happen even with the evangelical religions, which are supposed to be religions of the heart, which are all about your personal connection with God. Even that, if you need humor in order to have, like, a feeling of, like, personality, I feel like, and this movie did a really good job of portraying that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I love the deep moments in this film that are hidden in between some of the, like, most juvenile jokes.
Just one more sidebar. I did think it was very funny that Rufus, Chris Rock, brings up the fact that it's very ridiculous for people to believe that Mary was a perpetual virgin, despite the fact that that is Catholic dogma, like, you know, canon, that they're like, oh no, Mary was always a virgin, even after she gave birth to Jesus. Like, the line is, to believe a married couple never got down, that's just plain gullibility. It's like, yeah, actually, that's 100% true. Like, unless both Joseph and Mary were on the ace spectrum, like, that's extremely ridiculous to believe of, and Catholics are probably not thrilled about ace people getting married, so, like, come on.
Does that mean Joseph and Mary were technically never married?
Ooh, Catholic Church just got fucked.
I don't actually know the answer to that. I mean, of course the answer in Catholic canon is no, but, like,
It's very interesting.
it is an interesting question to think about.
They only
So
did
they-
butt stuff.
All right.
They finally make it to church where my brother needs to go.
Never.
And they are begging Glick to cancel the celebration. And Glick is like, nah, we're having a good time.
Which, to be fair, if I got that phone call, I'd be like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Carlin does a great job of portraying this, like, cardinal who doesn't really give a shit. Like, he's playing putter with, you know, he's, like, putting a golf ball with the gold chalice, and, you know, he's talking about how, like, you know, church attendance is down, you know, we're really trying to do all these new recruitment programs, get them while they're young, and then somebody's like, oh, like the tobacco industry, and he says, God, I wish we had their numbers, which is so funny.
That was
It's so funny.
good.
It's so funny.
And that's, like, Carlin's delivery is just on point. I love when he's in a movie for, like, 2 minutes. Like, and just, but, like, every minute is beautiful.
And, like, I don't know how much y'all read Dostoevsky, but there's a very famous like story that I think is in the Brothers Karamazov called the Grand Inquisitor, which is basically like, what if, you know, Jesus shows up and, you know, he gets tried by the church, and the, you know, the Inquisition is like, yeah, we know you're Jesus, but, like, we don't really need you anymore. And, like, this is kind of that story, but, like, made a little bit funnier and better, because I just love the idea of, like, the church being like, yeah, I know that you're all our angels or whatever, but I don't care. That's not really what we're about. And I just love Carlin's portrayal of this character.
This is like when you hear McDonald's talk about, like, their company, where they're like, we're a real estate company, not a burger company. You're like, oh God, you're evil. You're evil.
Yeah, it's really funny. And it, you know, I love some of these moments here with the tobacco joke's really good. And I didn't realize this could be interpreted as a retelling of that story, because I have not spent any time reading.
Listen, I have not read any Russian novels. I don't think I could get through Karamazov. I think I tried it once, and I was like, nope, this is 800 words of dense prose. But, you know, just read the Wikipedia summary for the Grand Inquisitor. It's good, I promise.
That feels much closer. So they decide they're going to keep the angels out of church, but the demon and the triplets trap them in a bar. Love that. And then the demon said that he is the one that showed the news clipping to the angels, and he would rather end all of existence than spend eternity in hell. And then he is routinely killed by Bob with a golf club that he had stolen from Glick, who had blessed it to improve his game.
So
I
good!
fucking love that. I love that.
I love the idea of that casually working, too. Like, it doesn't do a ton, but it knocks a couple strokes off your game.
I just think it's funny that, like, Catholics are, in all forms of media, even the ones heavily criticizing them, still, like, considered demon slayers. Like, just cuz.
Listen, it's bullshit. Like, none of this is real. It works, though. Like, literally works.
For some reason, they tapped into this part of it really well. And I love it. Bethany then blesses the bar's sink and they drown the triplets in the holy water that's made from that. And I love that so much.
And I know what you guys are thinking. Like, man, this movie ending on, like, drowning triplets, that's a lot of violence to just kind of to put right forward. Yep.
Remember early in this pod when you said there weren't demons or violence?
The ending of this movie is fucking brutal.
There is a massacre at a church, which, again, is a little uncomfy in the year 2021.
Yeah. So they go to the church, and Bartleby has killed Glick, the parishioners, bystanders. Loki would like to stop him. He is now wingless, and he is mortal. And that also means that he, like, you know, feels things and has empathy, and I like that take a lot.
I do want to give, like, a visual. So, like, they all come up on, like, there's body parts everywhere. Velocipaster body parts everywhere. And Matt Damon is just kind of standing there while Ben Affleck is zooming around the sky with his wings.
Yeah. And, like, it is a gruesome scene.
Oh, it's a lot. Thank God they didn't have more money.
Oh, yeah. And I also think that was probably intentional, too.
Oh, yeah,
and, Bartleby kills Loki when Loki tries to stop him. And, I mean, that is so interesting given how, like, tied their fates were prior to this.
So we now get the only J joke I laughed at. So there had been, like, a long-standing goof where Bethany tells Jay that she'd sleep with him at the end of the world, and at one point Jay saves her from, like, something, and they're, like, ducked behind something, and she's talking. She's like, "We got to come up with a plan," and he just, like, calmly is like, "Yeah, totally." Well, he's, like, grabbing something from his pocket, and he's like, "Yep, yeah, totally." He's like, "What are you doing?" And he, like, has, like, a condom, and he's like, "All right, I'm ready. I'm ready to have sex because the world's ending." And that really got me just because of his, like, "Yeah, all right, yeah, totally, yep." Just the business casual way of it.
That one did not do it for me. I hate to tell you.
Yeah, no, I specifically said that I hated that.
I just kind of rolled my eyes. I viewed that as a vehicle for a important plot point.
It wasn't great, and Jay should go to hell, but Silent Bob still kicks ass.
So the reason this is important is because Jay mentions Doe Jersey, and Bethany has, like, everything but a literal light bulb over her head, and she has put it together. So in case everyone is not acutely aware, Doe Jersey is the vessel of God. That is who God was to play skee-ball. So they go to the hospital, and everyone is trying to stop Bartleby. Bethany disconnects John's life support, and that means that God is free, but Bethany dies in the process. I mean, fine, I guess. The movie didn't spend very much time on the mythology of why, but
she just had to be a martyr, I guess, is what they say.
Bartleby reaches the church, confronts God, who is played by none other than Alanis Morissette.
Which is just really good.
It's really good. It's really good.
Incredible.
That was what sold me to this movie.
You were teetering on the fence for a while then.
No, I mean, that's how I was sold to watch this movie.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so God goes ahead and, speaks when it has been mentioned in this film that the voice of God would, like, destroy mortals and all of that. So everyone has to, like, cover their ears except for Bartleby, who is then destroyed instantly. And Bob arrives with Bethany's corpse, and Metatron makes a wax on, wax off joke in case you didn't know what year it was. And then
legally
God,
they had to.
Yeah. God has revived Bethany and done some God hijinks and impregnated her.
That's another plot point. Her whole thing is that she can't get pregnant, and that's why her husband divorced her. It's really stupid. We should probably stop having that plot point in media, especially, like, listen, I get that, like, it was 99. There's a lot of bad shit in this movie. This isn't the worst thing. But, like, the fact that this is still a plot point in, like, The Witcher 2020, like, let's maybe not make women having children be a character motivation. Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
Hey, Joss.
Hey,
Mr. Whedon.
You got bigger issues right now that you've done, but when you're done with those,
when you have a minute.
This one.
Yeah.
When you have a minute.
When you're done threatening people's careers.
So God takes Metatron, Rufus, Serendipity back to heaven, and Bethany and the prophets are left to just figure shit out, I guess.
You are missing a very interesting point where Bethany asks God, like, what the point of everything is, and God boops her on the nose. And then Metatron goes, told you she had a sense of humor.
That's one thing I think is very interesting, is that the Josh's God's a little scamp theory does apply in this movie, and that's kind of endearing.
She's just a little scamp.
I could be a Christian if I subscribed to that theory. Like, I would love a God that just, like, boops me on the nose when I ask, like, deep, serious questions. Like, oh, baby, it doesn't matter.
That is way above your pay grade.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, I don't know. This movie really worked for me in ways I was not expecting. Like, I went into it with pretty low expectations because, as you should with every stoner comedy, and Kevin Smith is incredibly hit or miss with me. Incredibly hit or miss with me. This one just hit. I really, really liked it. And I think, as Aaron is about to explain, it made some Catholics mad.
Some Catholics were not thrilled about it, per se. I didn't get any Catholic reviews, but I did just pull up some reviews from ChristianAnswers.net, which has a very funny rating system. The movie making quality was rated 4 out of 5 stars. The moral rating was very offensive, which is good. One very funny thing about ChristianAnswers.net is that they do have a prayer focus thing on the side of their website, and today's prayer focuses are for Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Stewart.
Oh man, their careers are in very weird places now.
Yeah, really good. But several people were upset by the fact that, like, the idea of God being fallible was a central plot point. They're like, no, that's just, heresy. Obviously, it sucks. It's very mean to talk about the church as being out of touch and greedy, et cetera, et cetera. But, there's actually, this movie got, like, decent reviews. It's got, like, a 63 at Rotten Tomatoes. Like, even Christians who watch this film, they like, you know what, it's not incredible, but, like, this review, who wrote this, Brad Francis, who is a contributor to the site, he says this line, which is, when a movie starts with a disclaimer that basically says, lighten up, God has a sense of humor, you're in for a ride. Bottom line, if you are strong in your faith and don't have a real problem with the profanity, crude references, and violence, the contents of this movie is worth seeing. Which, like, is a testament to the quality of the film. I think that the older the movie gets, oftentimes it is very difficult for it to hold up, but I thought this film held up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this film suffers as any film from 22 years ago is going to suffer, in that, like, our sensibilities change. And honestly, like, I would hate to watch a film 20 years old and be like, society is in the exact same place as it was then. That would be so deeply depressing. So when I get, like, cringe about something that happened in a film 20 years ago, there's a little relief inside of me, like, oh, thank God. We're getting a little bit better. Like,
yeah, this is no longer relevant.
Yeah.
And that's good.
So do you guys know about Kevin Smith and the protests with this movie? So there were
I love
multiple...
that we all have different fun facts, because I have a different fun fact.
Yeah, I fell into Kevin Smith. He's a very interesting storyteller. Like, hearing him talk during interviews is very fun. His cadence with everything is just on point. So when this movie first came out and Catholics were outside of every movie theater it was playing, protesting it, he decided, fuck it, I'll go. And he joined a protest against his movie and got videotaped by a local news station saying, like, yeah, man, the director of this movie, piece of shit, should not have made it. This is a Catholic country. And you can pull up the clip of him in the news calling himself a garbage human being for making Dogma.
Man, Kevin, he has fallen a long way to Paul Blart. Man.
He made Paul Blart?
Isn't that the same guy?
Oh, I did not think so, but we're Googling.
I could be wrong. I thought he was the same guy who did Paul Blart. Kevin James, I'm an idiot. Sorry.
Oh my god, okay.
I was like, my brain has just broken. Like, I didn't even have space for my fun fact, which is not so fun.
Is yours on the canceled sequel?
Well, mine ties in with the canceled sequel, but it is a pop culture fun fact.
Okay, do you want me to set up the canceled sequel and then you tell yours, or the other way around?
Yeah, you set up the canceled sequel because I don't know how much...
Yeah. So, in 2005, he was asked about, like, a sequel for it. And he said that he'd been thinking about it specifically after 9/11 and the United States having, like, a very Christian president, and, this big war and the issue of, like, whether gay marriage was the best or worst thing ever. And he was like, and then at the end of the thing, like, he kind of outgrew being able to poke, like, that much fun at a, like, religious group. Like, you can't get as much funding when you have that big of a name. And also, he was like, the film would have to touch on Islam. And then he said that... Jesus Christ.
This is a really bad quote. Buckle up, everybody.
Yeah,
this is a really bad quote.
My butthole got 4 times smaller.
And unlike the Catholic League, when those cats don't like what you do, they issue a death warrant on your ass. Those scary, dangerous Islam people?
Ugh, Kevin. So, needless to say, that's some bullshit.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, Muslims are not the same as ISIS. I don't think that should be, that's not a controversial statement.
If that shocks you, I do not know how you're listening to this podcast.
If you think Muslims are ISIS, please stop listening, like, comment, and subscribe.
So, would you like to know why this film is unavailable for streaming?
Ooh, I gotta guess. Is it because of one absolute dickbag Weinstein?
It is because of an exclusive deal with the Weinsteins that say, like, no distribution can be anywhere else. So yes, Harvey Weinstein is why this is unavailable for streaming.
Neato.
And in 2017, decided... hey, I've got nothing going on. There's nothing that could rock my personal or professional life in any way. So I am going to call my good friend, Kevin Smith. and say, hey, remember that sequel from that quote that we just heard from 2005? Why did we never make that? I think we should get the ball rolling. And Kevin Smith was like, nah, dude, I don't want to make the movie. And then, like, days later, the scandal broke.
Fuck. Kevin really dodged a bullet, huh?
There's also a very good story of Kevin Smith yelling at Harvey Weinstein in a movie theater, which is very funny. And I do recommend watching some of his interviews where he talks about it, because it is a man who regrets doing any business with someone like that, and a mix of feeling betrayed and sick for propping up any way he might have. Kevin Smith, stoner comedy director. It's about what you expect.
Complicated person.
Yeah, as everybody is.
Yeah.
Shall we give this film a rating?
Yes. I have mine, but I'm waiting, obviously.
Yes. I'm going to give this one a Taco Bell, because it goes great with a joint.
I'll give this one the 7th Station of the Cross. Jesus Falls for the 2nd time. I think that it goes some very interesting places, but it does stumble in some notable ways.
I hate that you gave it that first rating because it was remarkably close to what my original rating was. So I am going to just be off the wall here and rate this 3 out of 5 gods as women, because that always wins me over. And you know what? I agree. God is probably closer to Alanis Morissette than Zeus in Hercules.
As in, they don't exist.
As in, I am somehow the least militant about my doubt on this podcast.
Yeah, good pick. Fun episode. I think this is a good one to sort of ease us back into the podcasting groove. So when we're not neglecting our podcast, where can people find everyone on the internet?
I am at Green History on Twitter.
You can find me in the streets or at Michael's Diamonds on Twitter.
You can find me on Twitter at AaronSXL, where I talk about writing and tabletop RPGs. I'm actually, hopefully, going to be on the +1 stream tomorrow with some nice people, including Spencer Campbell, who is a relatively successful TTRPG designer.
Holy shit!
I'll probably
Congrats,
put a link to
man.
that in the... Yeah, thanks. So I'll be putting a link to that in the show notes. I also, hopefully, by the time this episode goes up, will have written an essay about why I think Fast and the Furious is a perfect example of tabletop RPG encounter design, which I'll also link in the show notes. I do another podcast with my friend Layla. We just released an episode today on the 2015 sci-fi movie Jupiter Ascending, which was really fun. And I highly recommend you all listen, because we talk about Channing Tatum and bees.
There's a bee?
Yes, many bees.
That movie's fucking buck wild. I gotta listen to that.
It's a good one. Well, folks, as you weep with relief at the return of your favorite Christianity-based podcast, just remember that it is okay to cry, because even Jesus wept. We'll see you all next time.